It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in. It is a Football Friday here on Sports by the Book. I'm Jeff Parles. Happy to be with you as always. We got see, there we go. Right out of the gate. We got a lot happening as we get ready for the show here. But as Chris and Vinny get themselves all warmed up in the bullpen here, look at this. Special guest. See you walking up. I'm like, oh, wait a second. That's Frank Schwab.
Hey, I mean, that's what happens. I walk through a sports book, and you guys come on with us. Fine. I like talking ball. Why not?
Well, we can make it pretty easy on you because the Chargers didn't make it easy on themselves last night. Of course, you can find Frank's work over at Yahoo. But I mean, we knew it was coming at some point. We knew Staley was going to be out. We figured Telesco was going to be out as well. And they're both gone this morning after what was. We'll get Chris and Vinny's opinion on it because they've been watching football a lot longer than I have. To me, the most embarrassing effort I've ever seen from a team, at least for one half of football.
Yeah.
42 points to a team that was shut out the week before.
And starting Aiden O'Connell.
Oh, and starting Aiden. Yeah, let's just.
I mean, I was there last night. I went to the game as a fan, and my wife was with me, and I was telling her the coach is getting fired tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, no way, come on. She's casual. I'm like, well, he's already got one foot out the door, and this effort is getting you fired every time. I mean, and it's his defense that let them down so badly. So you knew it was gone. The interesting question is, what comes next for the Chargers? And the one name I keep thinking about in the back of my head is Bill Belichick.
I think that's
right.
The quarterback's there, the defense needs the work, and you have a roster, and it's not an easy roster to turn over because they have a lot of cap that's already eaten up because, again, Bosa's getting paid a lot of money. Mm-hmm. We know Herbert, for a minute, was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Keenan Allen, there's a lot of veterans.
Mac, there's a lot. There's
a lot. It's not the easiest job. Whoever comes in next is the GM, but Belichick makes a whole lot of sense. We know we assume he won't be back in Foxborough next year, but hey, there would be harder landing spots for Belichick than that one with an elite quarterback.
And I think that's the thing. He's 72 years old next year. He does want to keep coaching. Maybe he just wants to go sit on his boat, right? I don't know. He seems to me like a football lifer who's never going to let it go. You want a ready-made team. And he's chasing Shula. He needs about 15 more wins to catch Shula. So I think he wants to keep coaching. If it's not New England, where can you go to win right away? He's not taking over the Panthers' job. Why would you? Why would the Panthers want him at 72 with a young team? So that's the name. The fit I keep seeing is Belichick and the Chargers, which I think would be fascinating.
It would be fascinating for sure. It'd also give Andy Reid and Sean Payton another elite coach to match wits with out there.
Yeah, they're not worried. They weren't worried about the Chargers last
time. Oh, they were not worried about the Chargers for really, honestly, going back to Anthony Lynn. Let's be real with ourselves on that. Frank, just looking at these games this week, I just want to ask you about Dallas and Buffalo here because that's the big one. Yeah. The Bills, great first half last week, but Kansas City continually, as they've done all year, shot themselves in the foot legitimately this week. And the Bills took advantage, got the win they needed to get back in the playoff picture. Now this jumbled mess with all these teams at 7-6. The Bills are actually in last in the standings of those 7 and 6s because of the AFC tiebreakers that they lose. And now to get Dallas, who, what a team they are at home. They still haven't beaten the high-end opponent on the road yet, and this is a good opportunity for them as a 2-point dog to do it.
Yeah, I mean, this was a tough game for me to figure out. And one thing about the Bills that I keep saying this week, I think they're either going to miss the playoffs or make the Super Bowl.
I know that's such a for people who be like, what the hell is he talking about? I actually kind of agree with you because
all they need is a foot in the door. That team is good. They are talented. All the advanced stats back that up. And they come home and I think they know they have to win this game.
Oh yeah,
this is they almost have to win out at this point. The funny thing is the division's opened up for them.
Oh yeah.
Miami lost and some of their injury concerns. They could steal that division still. I think they're the more desperate team, but let's not act like the Cowboys aren't desperate too. Look at the tiebreakers in the NFC East. They need to win out. I fully believe that they need to win out to have any chance to win the NFC East. They know that. So two desperate teams, urgent teams. I think the Bills get it done because they're at home and they're going to have the crowd behind them and they're a very, very good football team. But this Dallas team, like you said, I think they're really, really confident right now. They have figured out a lot of things. Mike McCarthy, constantly underrated. I know everybody likes to bang on Mike McCarthy and he's a terrible coach. His resume is fantastic. Yeah. Let's be honest. At some point, he is a good coach. He's figured out CeeDee Lamb is a fulcrum of our offense. Dak is cooking it with that. This is just a very good. I think it's a coin flip game, and it's not a game. It's a game of the week, not when I'm really excited to get action on because it's such a coin flip.
It's a very difficult game. I think the number's right for what it is, just shy of a field goal. And I'm happy you brought up the McCarthy thing because everyone over during the offseason when Kellen Moore got canned and the Chargers picked him up less than 24 hours later. That's usually that's the telltale sign. Hey, the team made the wrong move. No. This offense with McCarthy calling the plays is taking it to another level. And we've seen what happened with the Chargers. Now, not all of that's on Kellen Moore, but Herbert did regress a little bit this year from what he was the past few years.
Yeah, and I've been kind of a little contrarian on the whole like, is Justin Herbert really great? Mm-hmm. Really? Like, where is it? Okay, I mean we judge every other quarterback by wins and losses, right? Kirk Cousins can't catch a break in the public, but Justin Herbert gets a pass. Why? Because he had a great rookie season. I mean, anyway, that's what we're talking about, but. I do think that McCarthy, why isn't he coach of the year?
So,
really, that award is wide open right now.
Wide open.
And you can make a case for 5, 6, 7 guys. I actually think Peyton's going to win it. But, I mean, if you go from 1-5 to making the playoffs, pretty impressive. Narrative would be.
Personally, I would vote Stefanski at the moment.
That's a
when you've had 4 quarterbacks and you're still looking like you're going to make the playoffs. And you sign Flacco off his couch and look at what he's doing right now. Yes, it's unbelievable. All right, Frank, before we let you go here, let you go enjoy the rest of your vacation. What else on this card have you possibly played already? What are you looking at?
I love the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay. I really do because I believe in Jake Browning. Like we see these stories pop up, right? And some of these guys fade really quick. Like maybe Tommy DeVito is going to be an afterthought, right?
Maybe.
Jake Browning to me seems legit. I really can't believe that a guy didn't get a snap for 4 seasons after college, but yet can be a viable NFL quarterback. But you watch him. You watch a tape, there's nothing fluky about what Jake Browning is doing. This Bengals team around him is not only really talented, but I think they are invigorated by the challenge of winning without Joe Burrow. I love the Bengals going forward. I think they make the playoffs. I think they're actually kind of a dangerous team in that first round of the playoffs. And I'm not impressed. Nick Mullins, I guess. You're on your 4th quarterback. You're on the road. I didn't understand why this line wasn't low.
So, and with Zach Taylor, the first year, the year without Burrow, looked like he had no idea what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Just Michael Lombardi used the word bewildered, and I think he was right. Right. He looked bewildered on the sidelines, and I don't know if it was just getting Joe Burrow or it's just the maturation of being a head coach in this league. Zach Taylor's one of the few guys that, okay, you lose your quarterback. Now, this Browning walks in after a really rough first start against Pittsburgh. These last two, I'm with you. Yeah. The game against Jacksonville is the best quarterback game I think anyone's had the entire season.
I was watching that like, where is it? How did this guy not get a chance before now? He was great in that. And
then last week, other than the pick 6, he was awesome. That was a bad pick 6. It was a bad one. But look, a guy making his 3rd career start, he's going to make mistakes like that. So that's the first game of the triple header tomorrow.
Right. It's a good set of games on Saturday. Makes up for last night.
Yeah, well, if you had the over or the Raiders, you did pretty well last night. Frank, thanks for hopping in with us today. Frank Schwab, everyone. Yahoo Sports, where you can find Frank's work. All right, when we come back, we're going to hockey change it. Vinny, Chris, maybe Jimmy. You never know what you may find on a Football Friday here on Sports by the Book.
We work hard to provide you with all the conveniences that will make you come back again and again. Things like free parking and easy checkout from the TV in your room. While you're here, be sure to use the club card to get all the perks, comps, free meals, and cash we want to send your way. It's simply the best players' reward system in Las Vegas. Membership is quick, easy, and free, and you can start earning points for cash and comps immediately. Go to the club booth to sign up today. Also take advantage of our business center, located right by the Benny Binion statue. Print boarding passes or enjoy the convenience of our FedEx, UPS, and U.S. mail services. Just another way we're here to serve. Also during your stay, don't forget the convenience of room service. You can enjoy a delicious meal in your pajamas from the comfort of your room. Just call extension 77085 or use the room service function on the TV in your room. And if you need a ride to or from the airport, our free airport shuttle can be scheduled with the front desk at extension 73139. Please give at least a 24-hour notice to reserve. For information on Strip transportation, please call our bell desk. Finally, remember us for your next business meeting, conference, or banquet. From our 80,000 square foot exhibit hall to 70,000 square feet of convention space, which includes our grand ballroom, we have everything you need. Our getaway location and commitment to exceptional value and service have cemented our popularity with business communities around the country. Thank you for staying with us. Whether for business or pleasure, we're glad you're here. And we're here to serve. South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa, where there's something for everyone, all under one roof. Enjoy your stay.
Welcome back in. It's Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio. Big thanks for Frank Schwab hopping in. You never know who you may run into here at the South Point, especially during rodeo week, right? Right, Vincenzo?
I tell you this, people come visit us and say hello. We say, okay, now you have to work. You got to come with us. So we put Frank right to work.
Well, I haven't seen Frank.
It's been a little while,
about
right?
a year, I would say. Last time I saw him in person.
Mm-hmm.
Does
good work. Does a nice job.
Can do a little bit of everything.
Yes.
Always love chatting with him. Previous jobs as well. All right, Vincenzo. First off, welcome back.
Yeah,
good to see you.
Good to be here, buddy.
Good to see you today.
Yep, Chris is here.
Chris is here as well.
Jumping in.
Actually,
we're doing our thing.
There's a lot going on today. See, I see what Chris was going to do there. Wish he had done it, actually. The Jimmy Vaccaro walk back and forth in front of the desk. That's what I
was making sure my computer was here.
Oh, yeah, no, you're good. So, first off, on a Friday here, Football Friday, a little bit different, obviously. Not quite last week where it was one college game. We have a bunch of bowl games to get to. A little.
Is that what they are?
I guess. Also we have another FCS game tonight, which are the folks betting the FCS game like teams like they did last?
A little bit, yeah.
Albany and South Dakota State tonight, 20.
Yeah, we got some money on Montana tomorrow.
Okay.
Against North Dakota State. That actually should be a really good game.
Well, so South Dakota State, we talked about this last week. South Dakota State struggled last week against Villanova.
They did, yeah.
The wind played a gigantic role in that game. Even
it was
with
close up until late, right?
I mean, if you're a 20-point underdog, you can't have a punt block returned for a touchdown and expect to win a game on the road against a team of that quality. And Vinny, you said that South Dakota State was a top 35 team in your power ratings.
They are.
So a legitimate, really good team that's going to be better than a lot of these teams playing in bowl games over the next few weeks. All right, before we get to the bowl games, we'll start in college as we usually do in this opening hour. I have to ask about last night because Brandon Staley, Tom Telesco, see you later. It was a matter of time for Staley. It was just a matter of when. And last night, I'm a little surprised. Richard Sherman on the Amazon broadcast said that he should have been fired at halftime, and I actually kind of agree with that, with the way that first half went, where the Raiders scored 42 points in a half, 63 for the game. And quite frankly, I thought they were going to have a shot to beat the 73, which is the overall record for points in a game in the NFL.
I know Sean Payton was rooting for that.
Oh, Sean Payton, maybe even Mike McDaniel in a weird way rooting for it to be like, see, guys, you guys got to go out and score 70 again at some point. But there were all sorts of records last night. I just got to pull a few of these. The Raiders were the first team to score 42 points in a first half after getting shut in the game after getting shut out since the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets in 1927.
We didn't book that
Frankfurt?
game.
Kentucky, yes.
Frankfurt.
Wow.
Yeah. See, Vinny's familiar with the...
I was thinking
that's the capital.
There was a Germany
there might have been
a WFL team.
That would have been good, too. By the way, there was that Yellow Jacket team was coming off a tie against the Dayton Triangles. You remember them, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
That Frankfurt team, it's good bourbon country.
Yes.
They probably went drinking as a result of that game, too. That's how I think they started their own distillery.
But Chargers were right in firing Staley. I mean, that was beyond pathetic, and they'll play the 3 games out. They're going to be, they play Buffalo on Saturday next week, which if the Bills win, it could be 17, even though it's a road game for Buffalo.
Ooh.
Well, I mean,
let's
there's no home field advantage. It's a backup quarterback. Could be
well,
worth the 2 touchdowns.
The thing, listen, I was going to say blowouts happen. Usually nowhere near that bad, but
right.
The team absolutely quit. I mean, that's the thing. And, I was with, I'm on a thread with a bunch of guys, all from Pittsburgh. And I said in the second quarter, I said, because the subject has been for like the last couple of weeks, what do we do with Pickett? What do we do with Tomlin? And second quarter, I said, well, I can tell you right now, Staley's going to be available. And this morning they're texting, wow, you knew that in the second quarter. I said, yeah, I really did because, he was on the hot seat anyway. But you just you can't have your team quit like that on a national TV game.
No,
and you got to remember, even the Spanish family, who's I guess a little bit, they're tight, but they're very, very wealthy. They're very wealthy. You don't embarrass a billionaire like that on national TV. You just don't do it and think you're going to get away with it. You just can't.
I mean, this has been brewing for a while.
Sure.
We get asked a lot too. What's the price of who's on the hot seat and what are the prices in order and all. We don't partake in that. You never want to see somebody lose their job and everything like that. But you have to react to it because you see. Teams often respond, right, when there's a coaching change, particularly during the course of the season, right, Chris? We went through this with the Raiders recently, and we'll continue to go through it. But, look, it was brewing. Nobody saw this, breakout by the Raiders by any means.
What makes you say that?
Not only did they – but here's the thing, too. You have to remember, they lost – they got shut out last week. They got shut out 3-0 with, less than 2 minutes to go in the game.
Vinny, it was the lowest scoring.
You were at the game too.
I was
right?
Thankfully not.
No, okay.
No, thankfully not. I was right here watching that one, rooting for the game to land nothing.
Me too. I just wanted it to happen.
Which would have been the first time in 80 years, I think we calculated.
It was during World War II.
Yeah,
1943. It was the Lions and the Giants did it, I think, in 42.
Yeah, in Detroit.
Yeah.
And but look, the reality is from our side of the counter now, you're going to react to it. To your point about the game against Buffalo, Jeff, what do the Bills do this week?
Of course.
Right? Obviously, because they need every game. How do the Chargers respond? You figure there's going to be some type of response, right, guys? Because now you've got players and personnel playing for they realize their jobs are on the line.
All the coaches,
right?
Jobs are on the line, potentially
everybody.
be back.
So, who did they? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, who did they name as interim head coach? Kellen Moore.
No, it was not Kellen Moore.
No,
they named the outside linebackers coach, Jeff Smith, Giff, which already scares me that the name is spelled that way. Okay, I don't know anything about Mr. Smith.
I don't know. Vinny, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, and I think that you have to anticipate there'll be a much better effort. It can't get worse, right? I mean, so look, this time of year, too, you're going to see all kinds of things going on and people fighting for their jobs as teams get played out of the playoffs. You're going to have teams that can play their way into, but you got teams that are playing their way out of it. And at the same time, you've got players, and as we mentioned, Chris, you've got staff now. These guys weren't where they're going to be next year.
I would say, really, it's not the players. Usually, I mean, yesterday was a big exception. It's usually not the players that quit on the field. It's like the week of preparation that they don't put in the work. But yesterday, evidently, they didn't do much preparation and they quit on the field. But these guys have jobs and they want their jobs. And you also have to remember the guy you're lined up against. He's trying to kick your ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you better be at least a little bit ready. Mm-hmm. So I see certainly has to be some kind of response to what we saw yesterday. I'm not sure exactly what, but it's got to be some sort of strong response, at least mentally, for these guys.
One last stat from last night. The Raiders become the second highest point total for a team that was shut out the previous week with 63 last night. The 1934 Philadelphia Eagles, which amazingly, that was not the Stiegel era.
I was thinking, Stiegels was more the early 40s.
Right, 1934. They beat the Cincinnati Reds. No word on if it was the baseball team or not on that. The other ones that did that, the Akron Pros of 1922 with 62 points, and then Vinny, of course, the Rock Island Independents, of course,
naturally
putting it on the Rochester Jeffersons with 56 that day. That was 1923. Dude, those regular NFL football team names are outstanding.
Oh yeah,
the Independents, it's great stuff.
Yeah,
it's like a Gene Hackman movie.
It might as well be. Might as well be. All right, let's go to some college football. Let us start. We'll go. Even though this is lower on the rotation number, this is the first game of the day tomorrow, at a good old 8:10 a.m. Pacific time kick. You ready for that one, Chris? 8:10 in the morning for Ohio and Georgia Southern in the Myrtle Beach Bowl to get us started in bowl season here. Chris, right now, Georgia Southern 3 against Ohio. And of course, Chris, this is now bowl season. We're going to see a lot of moves throughout this. Ohio opened 2.5, and of course, there are portal moves. There are all sorts of moves that caused the reason for this.
Yeah, I was charting the bets before I came on the show just to make sure I kind of got my head on straight for this one. I'm thinking, okay, the first one, Georgia Southern plus 1.5. Okay. I guess that's where we're at, though. I guess that's where we started. So Georgia Southern, the first bet was at plus 1.5, and since then we've been as high as Georgia Southern minus 3.5, and now we're back to 3. They did take it with Ohio U, but a lot of business on the game, and I don't know, Jeff. These are all kind of like exhibition games. So, I mean, take your best shot. I don't follow either of these teams all that closely. Were this a regular season game, I would say, with teams at full strength, I think probably our number that we opened with Ohio 2.5 would be probably a pretty decent number.
First of 39 bowl games outside of the playoffs, right? And Chris hit on a key point. Treat them like exhibition games. So certainly not the limits that the playoff games are going to have. Not even the New Year's Six, really, but also quicker line movement. Even with lower point spreads, right? You have to be prepared to just try to get as much two-way action as possible. So you're going to see a lot quicker line movement, full participation, and people looking for an edge. What is the what are the transfer portal ramifications involving each team? And again, so a year ago we saw about 1,300 players at this time of year in the transfer portal. I think we're through 2,000 right now, and these two teams are no exception. So it's really a battle to find out as much as possible going into these games to see who is not going to play, whether it's an opt-out or as well as the transfer portal.
So Curtis Rourke, the quarterback of Ohio, he's not playing this game. He already transferred to Indiana for next year. Nice get for Cignetti, the new head coach of Indiana. Of course, was at James Madison. C.J. Harris is injured, so third string quarterback Parker Navarro is starting for Ohio. Davis Brin, who is actually responsible for one of the more ridiculous quarterbacking performances of the year, that game in Wisconsin earlier in the year where he threw 6 interceptions, and somehow Georgia Southern, despite outgaining Wisconsin, couldn't cover 20.5 because of that. He is going to start for Georgia Southern. So they do have the regular quarterback, and Ohio's on QB3. That's really the big, even more than just other starters that are out. That's really the biggest thing.
And that's the position, right? Yeah. That's the ultimate skill position, the impactful position. And really, it's about incentive, too, in a lot of these games. When you look at it, and you have to say, well, who's got more incentive? Georgia Southern, you talked about the Wisconsin game, Jeff, but this is a bowl game for them. And you really have to try to gauge and determine, frankly, the interest of some of these schools. It's unfortunate, and a lot of history here too, right? Especially under Frank Solich when he was there at Ohio and did a great. But like you said, for a variety of reasons, a third string quarterback going against a first string quarterback, that's very impactful, and I think we'll continue to see this number come down.
Let's go to the New Orleans Bowl. A usual suspect in this bowl, in this one, the Cajuns of Louisiana, taking on Jacksonville State, first ever bowl game for the Gamecocks. Rich Rod gets them there in year one. Of course, them and James Madison are in these bowl games thanks to not enough teams being eligible, not the NCAA actually eliminating the rules.
James Madison, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they're all there. Yeah,
great.
So Chris, this is another one of these. Zion Webb is going to play for Jacksonville State, which is very good news. Who is the quarterback? It can do a little bit of everything for the Gamecocks. All things considered, there's some opt-outs for the Cajuns, but even without the opt-outs, I actually do like this. Did like this Jacksonville State side. They opened to 3. It has been taken down to 2.5. Mm-hmm. So all things considered, this is actually one of the lighter movers because most of these teams are mostly intact, especially in comparison to most of these teams playing in these games.
Yeah, I think with both teams intact, I really thought the game was pick 'em.
Okay,
myself didn't move it kind of quick when they did take the 3. I got to tell you though, the way my power ratings work. 1 year builds on to the next year. And I really didn't have much on Jacksonville State. So I've been kind of chasing this one all year. And I think I kind of got it down now where I'm at least pretty close. You'll pick them and the number's 2.5. So, I mean, that's forgivable, certainly. But I did think this game was a legitimate pick with all the teams being represented fairly. So, again, probably, I don't know if you're going to see a 3 again. I have a feeling you won't. Maybe you take a nice little money line on the dog. I think that's where the value is, but not a whole lot of value. I'm not telling anybody to go out there and go crazy on this one.
So the game came down. The total first went up and then has come down, right? I think we 56 to 59 and now 58. So a couple of little two-way action on the total in this one. So and you'll tend to see. I think the general public looks to bet a lot of overs in these games, especially the early bowl games, right, Chris?
Yeah, I don't think they think the hitting is all that intense, in these games. And a lot of these kids, it's their, might be their final game, or maybe and a bowl game really should be a reward for a good season. And we've both been to New Orleans. It's a pretty nice little reward, I tell you.
Not too bad.
No, and but it might be hard to keep your head on straight during a week in New Orleans.
Yeah. Again, it's not a far commute for either of these teams. In all honesty, obviously in state for the Cajuns, Jacksonville State is in Alabama. For people that needed a little bit of a geography lesson on that.
I did. There you go.
Yeah, they're not they're not the Dolphins. The Dolphins of JU, regular Jacksonville, as we know, Jacksonville, Alabama, for the Gamecocks. It's going to be very simple for me on most of these bowls. It's almost always going to be a pre-flop pass, and then they go in-game on almost every single bowl game this year.
That's not a bad way to go, Jeff.
Just the way it has to be this year, unfortunately, with the way these teams, you don't even really know what you're getting, more likely than not. Speaking of not knowing what you're getting, Miami of Ohio, look, credit to the Red Hawks. They got it done in Detroit. They won the MAC. They're 11-2. Great season for them any way you slice it. Mm-hmm. They take on Appalachian State, who's the only team who was able to knock off James Madison this year. But Miami of Ohio is down to quarterback number 3. Yet again, Brett Gabbert is hurt. Avion Smith is transferring, who we saw a lot of him in the MAC championship. So Joey Aguilar will get the start for the Red Hawks here. Let me rephrase that. Henry Hessen's going to start for the Red Hawks. Aguilar, of course, is the quarterback for Appalachian State. Just misreading my notes, as we usually do on a Friday show, guys. But App State with Aguilar, 6.5. Chris, 42 the total on this one. This is Orlando, Florida for this game, the Cure Bowl.
I always really, when I open these, I respect the market more than I respect my own numbers. So I did open at 5.5, even though my numbers came to 7. And I got to tell you, the more I look at this game, I think 7 is probably a better number. considering the opt-outs for Miami. And I like Miami. I think that's a pretty decent program, and I like that league, to be honest with you. But I do think 7 is a little bit better number. I want to mention the total, though. We opened at 47, and what are we down to? 42. So pretty big tumble on the total, and that's all with money too. By the way, I mean we got bet every step of the way. So we'll be rooting for some scoring in this one for sure.
Yeah, I think this does get to 7, and actually going against the third quarterback, you might see it go through it actually. So I like Chris's 7, and it's not a shock.
And again, it's a shame for like Miami of Ohio, and these MAC teams just get crushed in the transfer portal these days.
Sure.
More so than any conference, it feels.
Well, they're right in the middle of a bunch of other really good conferences.
Well,
there are a bunch of other good teams.
I mean, look, your same footprint as all the Big Ten.
Yeah, so the Big Ten scouting your team like crazy.
And the Big Ten teams are playing a lot of these teams early in the year also to see, hey, who shined on tape against us? Maybe we'll go after those guys.
That's a big thing, and I'm unfortunately, I think that's one of the leagues that's going to get hurt quite a bit, at least in its present form and under present rules and so forth.
And it's a ripple effect, right? Because a lot of these guys who had hoped to play, let's say in the Big Ten as freshmen, they didn't, but they got a year or two under their belt, and now you see the movement from the bigger schools. We'll use the Big Ten as an example. Well, now it's almost like farm system, right? I mean, these are, hey, I'm going to go. I'm going to take a chance, and I think you're going to see even more involvement by staffs of Big 10, Big 12 schools looking at the MAC and literally identifying players that they want to reach out to. I think Nebraska's probably going to do it, especially since Nebraska wasn't able to sign McCord. I think you're probably going to see them do some. I mean, they'll look everywhere, but I could see them taking a long, hard look at the MAC schools.
McCord hasn't committed yet anywhere, but Nebraska's not even on the list.
Well, no, I think he
did he commit this morning?
No, he went there for a visit.
Yeah.
They were hoping to sign, but he was like, no, I'm not. But I think Nebraska was hoping that he would.
By the way, Kyle McCord has Michigan apparently on his list. Could you even imagine if that happened? Could you even imagine?
Like Babe Ruth going to the Yankees from the Red Sox? Wow.
I don't think it. I think he's going to Syracuse, but that's a different discussion for a different day. All right. Fresno State and New Mexico State. Some old whack action here. New Mexico State, of course, in the CUSA title game, they fall short. Pavia got hurt midstream in that game against Liberty. It looks like he is going to be back for this game tomorrow. This is also an easy trip for the Aggies going from Las Cruces to Albuquerque here for the New Mexico Bowl. Fresno's obviously had a very down year, all things considered. Of course, Tedford stepping away from the program for this game as well. 3.5 right now with the Aggies laying it against Fresno, Chris, with a total of 51.
Yeah, we opened this a little lower, 2.5, I think, and we got bet up. I think Jerry Kill, I think people are going back to see just what a good coach he is. In that Auburn game, I think probably lit the scoreboard for him. A lot of people remembered, oh, yeah, he was really good at Minnesota, and then he had, I guess, epileptic seizures that forced him into a retirement. I know he was doing some work for some other teams, but Jerry Kill is a very, very good coach. New Mexico State, I mean, ordinarily, I like a bottom 10 team, bottom certainly 10%, I would say, of college football. And he got this team on the winning track. And, with all the problems at Fresno State and all that, I think New Mexico State is probably the right side, given with a lot of situation, including the game being played in Albuquerque.
I mentioned earlier at the top, it's about incentive too with a lot of these bowl games, and I think New Mexico State is on a mission here. And again, I'm not saying that Fresno doesn't care, but it's a matter of who's got more intensity and who's looking to make a bigger statement. And I think, and plus this New Mexico team, we've seen them with some really good results here, particularly in the last month. So I think this number continues to climb. I
agree. I expect this to be 4 by the time we kick, at least on this one. Again, what a job by Jerry Kill, as we've said all year with New Mexico State. Yeah. That's an almost impossible job to win at, and he's in a conference championship game and beating Auburn on the road at Jordan.
Yeah, he was in a position though. Beggars can't be choosers.
Of course,
I mean, he had his job came up. He saw it as his way to get back into coaching, and you kind of got to root for a guy like Jerry Kill. I mean, he was a successful coach, and due to just a weird medical condition, he had to sideline himself essentially. But I hope he's better. I hope they found whatever cure or whatever you want to call it, that his epileptic seizures. And I don't know if I want to see him stay in New Mexico State per se, but I'm glad to see he's in the coaching ranks once again.
All right, let's go to one that just all sorts of transfers across the board in the LA Bowl, brought to you by Rob Gronkowski as the
I saw that.
Yeah, the sponsor,
the Gronk Bowl.
Yeah, might as well be. UCLA and Boise State. Of course, last time we saw Boise, they were running all over UNLV at Allegiant Stadium. UCLA rumblings that Chip Kelly was going to be out. I never fully bought that. A 7-5 year, a little bit of a disappointment in the final year in the Pac-12 for the Bruins. Now, I mean, there's so many guys out of this game with the transfer portal. Both starting quarterbacks. Dante Moore is in the portal. Taylon Green is in the portal for the respective teams. Injuries on the Boise State side as well. UCLA is 10 guys in the portal, including, not in the portal, but heading to the NFL. Latu, who is the defensive player of the year in the Pac-12 this year, is the defensive end, the big-time pass rusher for the Bruins. It does look like they might have Ethan Garbers fully available for this game, which would give them an edge at quarterback regardless of who starts for Boise. And, Chris, you've moved this from 3 all the way to 5.5. The bettors have taken it over the last 10 days or so in L.A. for this one.
Yeah, we were as low as 2.5 at this on this game at one point. I'm not in as bad a shape as you think, because I got a lot of money on Boise that took me down to 2.5. But since then, it's been all UCLA money. They laid me the 3, the 4, the 4.5. So as of now, when they kick off, I'll be rooting for Boise. It wouldn't be surprising if that stays there. Total did move a little. They bet me under 49, under 48.5. But I think, one of those games, again, I'd love to see both these teams at full strength. I think it'd be a pretty interesting game, but now, I mean, listen, every game's interesting if you have a bet on it. But otherwise, I wouldn't be too crazy about this game.
I think as we get closer to kickoff, too, this total will come up, right? I mean, they're laying the price. I just think with these two teams, I think we could see some points, and I think that this total will go back up and it'll correlate. It's kind of right. You see a favorite just get bet up, and you see the total come down. I think public gets involved with the totaling on the overside.
Like I said, no idea on any of these games going on. Really don't. And if Garbers is able to play, then yes, this number is justified, even with the opt-outs, even with the transfer portal for UCLA. It makes sense. And again, we talked about it with Boise. This is the weakest Boise team we have seen in years.
About 20 years.
And here they are still. Again, a Mountain West champion playing in the number 1 bowl slot for the Mountain West. This used to be the old Vegas bowl slot. Now they shifted it over to LA because the Vegas bowl now was the Pac-12 against the Big Ten or the SEC. Probably the SEC versus the Big Ten moving forward in that bowl with the Pac-12 no longer existing.
We'll have the national championship here.
Well, at some point.
Probably, yeah.
At some point we will. All right, one more for Saturday, and then I at least want to take it to Monday and Tuesday since we have you both here before a show next week. Texas Tech and Cal in the Independence Bowl. Nice fun trip for Cal from Berkeley to Shreveport, Louisiana. What a fun one that is. At least
it's no bus ride.
Hey, at least it's
not.
At least it's not Christmas in Shreveport anymore for those kids. Texas Tech is 3, 58 is the total. these teams actually relatively, at least Texas Tech, Baron Morton's going to play, it looks like, where there was a lot of question of will he be healthy, will he go in the portal? Looks like he's going to play. Cal missing a few pieces, nothing overly large though in this one. So Red Raiders 3, Chris, total 58 on this one in the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, L.A.
I opened this Texas Tech 3.
Yep.
Trying to see. The first bet came in on. I'm trying to figure this out because first bet it looks like came in on Texas Tech. I went to 3.5, back to 3, and then back to 2.5 where they laid me Texas Tech. So right now, I do not want the game to come 3.
Okay.
But yeah, so pretty decent two-way action. This game got some money on the under as well. But I don't know. They see. They bet me under 58, under 57.5. Bet me back over 57. I don't know. Cal, I think, was one of those teams for me that was very surprisingly good this year. I did not expect much from them. So, I'm kind of rooting for Cal a little bit in this one. For at least at this point, doesn't look like I said, it looks like the only thing I need to do is avoid the 3. So, at this point, I would say I'm probably rooting for Cal just because I kind of like the team that they were a bit of a surprise to me this year.
It's the nightcap, right? So everything will be going to it. And let's remember, and we'll get to them in a little bit, but we've also got the 3 NFL games. So this game is going to play a role in terms of how the day goes for both bettors and bookmakers tomorrow.
Again, this is a whole new world with these bowl games, especially over the last 3 years, especially now where it's hard to really handicap these games. Mm-hmm. A lot of these big movers, a lot of these numbers are gone as well. It's a tough go. Again, that's why I said earlier in the show, other than the playoff game, and other than maybe if Oregon guys decide to sit in the Fiesta Bowl, maybe a bet on Liberty. That's basically it. That's basically all I'm going to be looking at in these games. Or
in-game,
No, in-game's a whole different animal.
It's different,
Because, hey, look, even when the players weren't opting out, you could look at, the one that stands out was back in the day when Army played Houston, and Army is still scoring touchdowns in that bowl game from 5 years ago. So...
How about it was a big deal. Remember McCaffrey sat out. Everybody was up in arms. That would seem now again when you've got about 2,000 players in the transfer portal alone, and that doesn't include obviously the guys that have declared for the draft or are eligible for the draft. It's staggering. And again, it's advantage bettors, frankly, because of those circumstances, and that's why the limits are lower, and that's why the games move as quickly as they do.
All right, let's do one thing on college hoops for tonight because there's a gigantic game tonight.
Yeah,
in Seattle, plays basically as a Gonzaga home game.
Yeah,
Gonzaga and UConn. This is a late tip too, 7:00 Pacific time. Nice game to have your NBA and NHL and all that fun go through tonight. Chris, you opened at 4. Hasn't moved the whole day. With
we're
UConn.
still at 4,
Yeah, haven't moved. Total's been bet up from 150.5 to 153, which is no shock, especially with Gonzaga playing. With that said, I like UConn. I know it's basically a de facto Gonzaga home game. Obviously, a little different playing in Seattle than Spokane, but still going to be a ton of Gonzaga fans there. I just think UConn's a lot better than they are this year. I think that's really just what it comes down to more than anything, Vinny.
I made I've got Connecticut the favorite. I think it's right there. I actually had Connecticut. If this is supposed to be a neutral, but you can't treat it as a complete neutral.
Not.
But I think Connecticut is better off playing this game in Seattle than in Spokane.
Connecticut.
Yeah,
you're right.
The cracker box that is. It's tough. It's stores is tough too, right, for people. So an on-campus facility is much more challenging. No question about it. And that's a huge advantage that's why so many teams did not go up and play Gonzaga. If you remember prior to the last few years, Gonzaga would have to play these kinds of games away. They would never get these games. Nobody wanted to travel up there. I think Duke was the first one a few years back. Krzyzewski went up there, to his credit, in that regard. But this is a game, certainly Connecticut is used to this type of travel and this type of environment. The neutralizer is that it's an easier trip for Gonzaga. But on a neutral, I'd have Connecticut. I didn't give a full home court advantage here for Gonzaga, maybe 1.5 or so, but I'd have this about 6 in my power ratings.
Ken Palm has this game, Connecticut 2. So,
Connecticut 2 and a neutral?
Yeah.
Semi-away is what it's written as.
Is that the way he's got it?
Well, whenever you get one of these games, even though, granted, Connecticut at MSG, he had as a neutral. We all know that not neutral with UConn at MSG.
But it's a similar situation, right?
No,
I mean,
very
this
similar.
is what you're looking at here,
the
right?
Exact same thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
so.
But look, UConn's only loss is by 4 at the Fog. I mean, this team is every bit, at least in the early goings. I don't know if they're as good as they were a year ago, obviously, because that team was. Even though they had their lull in the middle of the year, that team was unbelievably talented, and they showed it showed it at the beginning of the year, and obviously showed it in March and April. But this team is, to me, the country's a little bit weaker this year. Other than Arizona and Purdue,
right?
I don't see anyone in the country that's better than this team right now.
Which, yes, I don't think they're as good as last year right now, Jeff. But I mean,
they could be by the end.
When they get though to the tournament, there's enough pieces, obviously, there from the championship team. They'll get better as the season goes on with these types of games too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Ken Palm has them number 4 in the country at this point. That's probably about right. That's Houston number 1.
Yeah, Houston still has look, Houston hasn't really played anyone yet.
No.
Yeah, and Arizona and Purdue after that. Well, I think Vinny's been telling me about Arizona for a while.
Arizona plays Purdue tomorrow in Indianapolis.
That's a game and a half.
That's pretty good, and it's on Peacock only. Well done, everybody. Regardless, a Houston team, by the way, we'll find out with Houston. We actually brought this up with Kai McKeon yesterday on the show because BYU is top 10 Ken Palm also, which watching them, I think, is nuts that they're that high in that.
That was 3-man weave guy.
Yes,
he liked Gonzaga, I think, right?
Yesterday there were some overnights that were at 5.
Oh, okay.
He liked the 5.
Okay.
So little
close,
close with it down to 4 now. But Houston, by the way, I'm curious that they play A&M tomorrow. That will be a good game as well. I'm curious to see how Houston, BYU, Cincinnati, all those teams that came into the Big 12 this year do with playing elite teams night in and night out.
Well, Houston is not particularly deep, and they haven't. It's not. Listen, they're a good team. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, they're top 16 team easily.
I've got Arizona as my top rated team.
I agree. At the moment, the way they are playing, and I mean, you won at Cameron Indoor.
Yep.
I know Michigan State is below water right now, but that is still a tournament caliber team, despite the fact that they haven't played.
They play everybody.
And they destroyed a really good Wisconsin team. They put 98 on Wisconsin last week, which is not an easy thing to do with that defense that the Badgers
They've got a perimeter game. They've got an interior game. They shoot free throws well, especially you saw that at the end of the Duke game in Cameron, and that's critical. And they rebound. You look for teams with good guard play that can shoot free throws and can rebound. Those are the key preps for the big dance.
Arizona's in the midst of a run where they already played Wisconsin. They get Purdue in this game in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. Then they play Alabama in Phoenix, and then they come here to play Florida Atlantic next Saturday. So
wow.
That should
be a good game.
That's a really good stretch of games, 4 straight against high-end competition. And you go through this 4-0. I mean, there's no doubt who's number one. Actually, Vinny, I know there aren't numbers up, but Purdue's got to be, 2 in that game?
It's in Indy. I think they're
Purdue
1.5.
1.5?
I actually, Purdue, it's kind of hard to figure them out sometimes, right? I mean, you look at these,
their only losses to
Northwestern, but who shot like Villanova did in the '85 title game against Georgetown, right? It was ridiculous, and credit them. I mean, their perimeter, they buried threes that day. But Yeah, I mean, Purdue is a deserving favorite. I mean, it's a shorter trip. Certainly, like tonight is a home game for
home game for
Gonzaga.
Purdue.
Yeah,
and they're a quality team. We saw them respond in a few games. They've been down at the half, and they make good adjustments at halftime. So they're a quality side. But two there is my number. In fact, it's probably there's got to be some overnights on that game.
what's that?
But
Which game?
the Purdue Arizona game for
Looking at it
tomorrow.
Right now, he's got Ken Palm. Oh, this is Ken Palm. I haven't looked at the numbers. Ken Palm has Purdue by 1.
Yeah.
Just looking right now.
Wait, our mics are not on?
No,
by the way,
We have to start over.
So
I'm reading my computer. Yeah, thanks.
Right, you just totally derailed the segment there, Ryan.
yeah.
Forgot you guys were back there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Keep us
I thought I
sharp.
was talking to these two yo-yos over here.
Arizona. And by the way, Purdue is 1 in the overnight.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah. Okay.
Which again, 1.5 feels right.
It's right there.
The Ken Palm numbers are usually pretty close.
Yeah. By the way, I will tell you, we'll be on the show tomorrow morning, Alex and I. I can almost guarantee you I'm going to bet Northwestern tomorrow. I can almost tell you that right now because they're coming off of just an unfathomable loss to Chicago State earlier in the week.
And the celebration was akin to.
That's the best win in Chicago State's athletics program's history, basically.
It looked like
when they won the Super Bowl. Honestly, they basically did by doing
and they
that.
should. Good for them.
And Northwestern plays DePaul, who is not any good despite what they did to Louisville last week.
I didn't want to bring that up, Jeff.
Yeah, I had to. I mean, it's kind of a joke.
There have been some really look at what UNLV did with Creighton the other
how about
night.
that?
I mean, it's a similar. You hit on a key point. Is it wide open? Yeah. I mean, are there some elite?
It's always wide open
teams?
now.
Yes, but we've seen and will continue to see some significant surprises as we negotiate this schedule through the winter.
No, look, we'll see. Creighton just can't play the Mountain West. That's all that is. I mean, Colorado State beat them by 21, and then UNLV.
It's a good side, Colorado State.
Colorado State's a good team.
Very good.
They're the class of that conference.
I would
Them
say.
and San Diego State.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed.
And UNLV, I mean, we've been waiting for that moment with UNLV for them to finally bust through. And with both Boons active, we finally saw it 2 nights ago against Creighton, and that game was never even competitive.
No, they
total
beat them
whipping
from the start.
Yeah. Total whipping in that game. UNLV, by the way, St. Mary's tomorrow and then Hofstra before the new year. 2 actually pretty nice tests for UNLV coming up. The Pride pretty good at this basketball thing this year, Vinny.
You know what, Hofstra, I got to play there.
You did in Hempstead.
I did for basketball and for fitness. We had a fitness.
For fitness?
That was the first time I had.
For fitness?
Oh, yeah, 1975. I was on the.
Did they climb the rope?
No, I didn't have to. We everything was outside. It was worse than that. It was the United States Marine Corps physical fitness training program.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Well, I had to join the team because the chemistry teacher, who also ran the bookstore.
Wait, hold on a second here.
Yeah, which Vinny was very much involved in the book part of the bookstore.
Okay.
So,
Got it.
we had to do all of these exercises. It was my first experience on AstroTurf, and Chrissy and I often talk about your early AstroTurf, which is basically indoor-outdoor carpet on plywood, and it was a nightmare. But anyway, you were assigned a Marine was assigned to you, to every member of the team, and if you did not succeed in your particular heat, and it was pull-ups, push-ups, sprinting, and everything, I was pretty fast, considering. The fact I just kept running. We had a 300-yard dash, and I didn't finish first. I never went back to the finish. I never went back to the starting line. I went right.
Adios.
I was like, thank God it was the last. It was the last part of it. Anyway.
Didn't I see that on Forrest Gump or something?
Vinny Gump. That was me. I just kept going.
Oh man,
but it was great.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We come back. Second hour of the show be an hour and 5 minutes. Technically, forget the top of the hour. We don't need that. Because we have 15 NFL games to get into, including 3 tomorrow. Triple header in the NFL as we get ready here on Sports by the Book. A Football Friday at the South Point studio.
If you're celebrating a special occasion or just love fine dining, you're in the right place. Come experience the crown jewel of South Point restaurants, Michael's Gourmet Room.
Welcome.
With over 600 different types of wines and magnificent dishes prepared tableside, you'll revel in the rich classic Vegas decor and the best black tie service in the world. This intimate gourmet room has earned accolades galore. Come to Michael's Gourmet Room for an unforgettable dining experience. Another famous restaurant is the Silverado Steakhouse, where you'll find the charm and service that discerning patrons require. From top quality steaks and chops to fresh seafood and desserts, you'll love the award-winning wine list and menu at Silverado Steakhouse. Steak lovers have even more options with primarily prime rib. Catering to hearty appetites, the menu features a variety of flavorful prime rib cuts, dry-aged to ensure tenderness, and then seasoned and slowly roasted. Although prime rib is our specialty, it's not the only thing on the menu. There's something for everyone. And if you're craving a taste of Italy, come experience delicious Italian cuisine and the attentive service at Don Vito's. Our culinary team starts with the freshest ingredients and transforms them into traditional favorites. And don't forget Italian desserts. Don Vito's. Savor the taste of Italy. Finally, if sushi is more your style, join us at the popular Zenshin Asian restaurant and sushi bar, where we're serving up the freshest sashimi, nigiri, and sushi rolls. And beyond the sushi, an exciting contemporary Asian cuisine menu. Plus a variety of specialty drinks, Japanese and domestic beer, wine, and sake. Balance your hunger with Zenshin.
There's the Christmas tree, all the sports balls you can imagine on there here at the South Point Sportsbook, of course, where that is. I'm Jeff Parles. It is Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio. Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo alongside. We may see Jimmy at some point. Hopefully we will.
Hopefully.
He's in his afternoon briefing.
Oh, he's in his afternoon briefing. Well, regardless, at some point, the next time we see Jimmy, we're getting the etiquette, spa etiquette story, regardless if it's today,
teased
next
that
week.
all week. Right?
Well, worst comes to worst, he can come in tomorrow morning and tell it. I mean, wouldn't hurt the viewership if for Saturday morning if we had that. Wouldn't hurt it at all. So let's go to the NFL, guys. 15 games, 3 tomorrow, and let's start there. Cincinnati, Minnesota. Nick Mullins, welcome to the party for the Vikings, the 4th different starting quarterback for Minnesota this year. Jake Browning has been awesome the last 2 weeks in back-to-back wins for the Cincinnati Bengals. Chris, Vinny, Bengals are 3, opened at 4. Bettors have taken Minnesota here in this one. The Josh Dobbs story was
practice this week, right? So he's probably looking to play. I think that's why there was a take on the number. But I also think that there'll be some support for the Bengals here. We certainly don't want to see a 3, but I mean, they'll lay to 3, I think, with the Bengals. So overall, I think it'll be a pretty good two-way betting game, Chris.
They're starting to lay the 3 a bit. You know, they did take 4 and 3.5, and I can understand that. The Vikings have, pretty good defense, totals relatively low, although it's bounced up. It went from 39 to 40 to 40.5. But I think with Jefferson being back, I think there's that's a good reason to bet the Vikings. But I think it did kind of hit that low water mark at 3, where you're going to see a little bit of support for the Bengal team.
So Jefferson, of course, had the chest injury last week in his first game back. Mm-hmm. Left that game. We all know Minnesota beat the Raiders 3-0 last week, and the lowest scoring indoor football game in NFL history.
What was it?
The lowest scoring indoor game in NFL history, 3-0. So
wow, that only makes a lot of sense.
Especially after last night.
We're in a lot of domes when the games were finishing 2-0.
No, I'm thinking of those Lions games at was it Forbes? No, what was it?
The Silver Dome, right?
No, was it Ford Field?
Well, now it is, yeah.
Yeah, but what was the old?
The Silver Dome. Was there one before the Silver Dome or no?
The outdoor stadium.
Oh.
Where the Lions played?
Yeah.
Was Briggs Stadium. They played where the Tigers
Briggs
played.
Stadium. Okay.
Yeah, Briggs Stadium was the site of the last nothing.
Yes.
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 With the Lions and the Giants. What are we saying? 42, Vinny?
1943.
Right? 43 is what we
Yes.
said. Okay.
80 years ago.
There we go. That's a whole lot of fun. I'll say on this game, and I'm just curious because we're dealing with backups and third strings and fourth quarter. We're dealing with all the way down the barrel here with all these backups because of all the injuries here. But I will say this about Jake Browning, and you brought it up the week that he came in where his high school numbers were sick. He threw 90 touchdowns in his senior year at Folsom High School in California. Got Washington to the playoff. I think a lot of people forget that he was the quarterback of that team. They made the college football playoff, but that was Alabama was the team that stomped them in the Peach Bowl that year. But he's looked like a real NFL quarterback. We're a guy who'd been in the league for 4 years. We saw Easton Stick last night, 5 years in the league without real action. Didn't go well, as we know. But for Browning, after that first start against Pittsburgh, where it looked like, all right, you know what? He's going to play out the string. The Bengals will miss the playoffs. It's just one of those years where nothing went right. Your franchise quarterback gets hurt, and so be it. But this looks like a team that Browning's going to play like, forget the 2 weeks ago, because that's not sustainable. Even if he plays like he played last week, where he made the big mistake. He threw a really bad pick six, but then stabilized from that and played really well. Cincinnati can get to 10 wins, which is the number you need to get there this year. You get to 10-7, you're going to get in the AFC playoff picture.
Well, I think the team's responded to him too, Chris.
Yes.
Well, I think the team's responded. And, something I've said for a while. I think Zach Taylor, if you look at him, I did not like him as a rookie coach, but I think he's grown into his position. And I think one of the things that they've done, they could figure out what Browning can do, and it's not the same things that Joe Burrow could do. So they catered their offense to what this kid could do. And listen, you don't just throw up those numbers for no reason, and you don't lead a team to the college football playoff, especially the Pac-12. Okay, there's years they've been down, but there's still a very legitimate league that he won the league, got him into the playoffs. I mean, the kid has some talent. The kid can play. So I think they did try to figure out what can he do best, what can he do to help us win these games, and so far they're doing it. I don't want to. It's not like they're lighting the world on fire, but they seem like a pretty efficient football team, and they absolutely can make the playoffs.
I mean, they went from totally dead, 10-point underdogs against Jacksonville on that Monday night, to winning that game outright, to winning with the. I mean, that game, if it wasn't for the pick six, that game's 34-7. I mean, that game was a total.
They jumped out. They jumped out with 14-0 right away, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the pick six, that game was not even competitive. I mean, I know it was 14-14 at halftime, but Cincinnati drilled them in the second half.
To Chris's point too about Taylor, I have to tell you, we talk about too how these rookie quarterbacks or second year quarterbacks, there's so much expected of them. You know what? It's the same thing with a lot of these coaches. I mean, if you're hiring a coach as a general manager, as an owner, if you're hiring a coach that has no head coaching experience in the NFL and you expect them to be, Bill Belichick right away, well, wait a second. That's not going to happen. I mean, let's face it. So I think we, credit the organization for at least sticking with it, and credit him for adjusting too.
Right.
Though, to your point, Chris. So, but that's another thing that we see, in this league and in this, it's this day and age of immediacy, right?
Yeah.
We expect these rookie quarterbacks to be Brady-esque, if you will. Well, we're expecting, bigger things out of a lot of these inexperienced coaches too, and it takes time. It's a different world.
Well, and it's interesting for Taylor. Remember, that was in the middle of when the NFL teams were just hiring guys who had anything to do with Sean McVay.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
Right.
You could have washed his car and you might have gotten a job in the NFL with the way that everyone was trying to recreate what Sean McVay did in Los Angeles with the Rams. And that first year, Taylor, I mean, didn't look like an NFL coach.
I thought he was.
Now, granted, that team was awful that year.
I understand.
But both of you brought it up, like the way he's developed. And now I have confidence in him to be able to, all right, get Jake Browning to the NFL playoff. Like, Never would have thought that 3 years ago.
Right.
No chance.
Yeah.
Jeff, when I get guys back here and they're starting as supervisor, and I really don't know what I'm doing. Stop. I says, this is your first day. I says, you're going to look back a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and say, holy cow, I was, I didn't know what the hell I was doing then. But look at how far I've come.
Yeah,
I said, so that's just expected. That's the way it works.
Well,
you're not going to know everything day one, but the fact is you're getting paid to do a job, and you're supposed to learn as you go along. Mm-hmm. And I give this guy credit because I knocked him as much as anybody when he started. I thought it was going to be a disaster, but he did come along, and I think he's learned the game really well.
And he gets along with Burrow, which is all that really matters.
Baby.
That's
pretty
important.
Big, yeah.
That's for sure. All right, let's go to the second game tomorrow. Colts and Steelers. You know what? I'm going to call this game the I don't know anything about these teams despite being in December Bowl. I don't know anything. Like, the Steelers defied logic all year with a negative point differential, only one game over 400 yards of offense, and they're 7-6. Indianapolis, at some point, and last week might have been the moment where the regression finally starts for them, where Minshew had been able to protect the ball, but he had a lot of dropped interceptions mixed in there in the last month, and it all came crashing down in that game against Cincinnati last week. Chris, I think your number's right. I think Indianapolis should be short of a field goal in this game. You have 2. There's 1.5 out there. I am absolutely not taking anything in this game because if you told me Pittsburgh with Trubisky goes in there and the defense looks great and the Steelers win like 20 to 10. Okay, sure, I can see that. Or Indy's offense finds it again. Like they were, again, for a while, they were the only team that scored 20 points in every game, and that got all the way into November before that game in Frankfurt against New England. And they find it again, and offensively, they win 24-17, 24-16. Yeah, sure, I could see that. But I have no idea. I have no clue, and I'm going to just watch this game and see if there's some sort of in-game angle to go with.
Boy, that's funny because I have a friend of mine, not one of my Pittsburgh guys, but a friend of mine from elsewhere. And he loves to, text me every week. What do you think of this? What do you think? He's in a contest, and he's actually doing really well. And he says, I don't know, what do you think of the Steeler game? He says, it opened 2.5, or it opened 3, I think. Went down to as low as 1.5. Now it's bouncing back up. I says, I got to tell you, I have no idea what to think of this game. I really don't. I have no idea whatsoever. A lot of the things you just touched on, Jeff, I would echo the same sentiments. There's not much that would unless this game ended up 47-45, then I'd be surprised. Other than that, I don't know what the hell's going to happen here. I really don't.
Look, again, we had the game last week on Thursday with the lowest point total of the year, zoom over in the first half. The Raiders scored 63 points last night, so we know nothing. We know nothing at this point. And Vinny, just to bring up the playoff picture, and the AFC is a jumbled mess right now, to put it politely. You have right now all at 7-6, not in order of the current standings. Right. Buffalo, Denver, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Indy, and Houston. Right now, Indy and Pittsburgh hold the 6 and the 7 seed. Cleveland is 8-5 as the 5 seed right now. I mean, this is a monumental game for the AFC playoff picture because if you look at the schedules, I mean, if Pittsburgh loses this game, they play Cincinnati next week. No gimme. I would say.
And Cincinnati is vying.
I mean, what? That's probably a pick in Pittsburgh next week? Probably.
Something like that.
They go to Seattle. There'll be a dog in that game. Yeah. And they go to Baltimore. And if the Ravens need that game week 18 to get the 1 seed, especially what happened earlier in the year, the Ravens will be a pretty significant favorite in that game.
No doubt.
Ravens will show up whether they need a game or not.
We've had this in the past. The year they got the 1 seed in 2019, I think it was Duck Hodges playing for Pittsburgh in that game. Steelers needed the game to make the playoffs. And the Ravens backups beat them. So you're right. They'll show up anytime. Indy, their remaining schedule after this week, have fun figuring out the lines for a few of these games. At the Falcons, you have no idea what you're getting out of Atlanta on a weekly basis. The Raiders, that game's in Indy.
Indy.
We saw 2 years ago in a similar situation, the Raiders, remember, won that game in Indianapolis en route to making the postseason 2 years ago, knocking Indy out the week before that disaster in Jacksonville as the 16-point favorite. And then Houston the final week of the season. So
who's going to need the game?
Houston, by the way, we'll get to Houston later. C.J. Stroud's not going to play on Sunday, and that's obviously a huge.
Hopefully, he would be back by then.
You would, and if it's more than 1 week for a concussion, that's usually very, very bad sign. But we'll see how that plays. But Vinny, again, these games for huge playoff implications in this one, and there are a few games this week with huge playoff.
Well, they should be right too. I mean, here we are. We have we're down to less than a month to go in the regular season. By the way, it looks like the Steelers linebacking core is going to be able to go in this game, right?
Correct.
So Watt, Highsmith, I think are
they're now with some of the injuries, those are the two best.
Yeah,
Minka's not been 100% all year, and and Hayward's been he's been out. Otherwise, those are the two most important guys on the defense.
Watt cleared protocol yesterday. He's good. He's good to go.
So, no real surprise that money's showing for the Steelers here, and maybe they just need to get out of town. I don't know.
Maybe. Maybe as simple as that.
Listen, we had Dave Damashek on Frank's show earlier, and he would tell you, and I would tell you the same. I've been watching this team for years. This is the kind of game that they win, and the kind of game that they lose
the last 2 weeks.
The 2-10 teams. That's just.
Wow.
And it's happened time and time again. And Dave had the numbers with Tomlin as the coach. It's just happened time and time again. And the roster's turned over, so you can't blame the players. I mean, the key ingredient, the similar ingredient is Coach Tomlin.
Steelers on the money line per Chris Andrews.
Let's go to Saturday night. Denver and Detroit. This game about 2 months ago would have looked like a horrible game, and now here it is. Denver right smack dab in the middle of the playoff chase in the AFC. The Lions have significant issues right now.
Especially on defense.
Now the Lions are still probably going to win the NFC North. They play Minnesota twice. You split those games. You're still going to win the division at 10-7 if you're Detroit, more likely than not, because I don't think Minnesota's capable of winning out. The Broncos took full advantage of the Chargers' mess last week after losing a game that was a lot closer than it should have been against Houston. They had actually a shot to win the game late. Wilson throws the desperation heave and the interception at the end of the game. Vinny, you mentioned it. I think this Detroit defense is awful, and they have been awful now for 6 weeks. And yet they're at home. It's prime time. I get why bettors have taken this from 3.5 to 4.5, even at 5 at 1 point. I understand it. Denver's one of those teams that you kind of want to go against because of the way they've won these games. They've won it with forcing turnovers and taking advantage of short fields. That's not overly sustainable. But I don't know how you can lay any sort of points with Detroit right now with the fact their defense can't stop anyone.
Well, the defense, the total tells you a bit too about their defense.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Up to 48, and up a couple of points off the opener too. Not that the Broncos are a high scoring team, but it does. It's a bigger indictment, I think, of the Lions' defense and how poorly it's performed. So look, 3.5 got as high as 5, I think. Right, and now 4.5 here. So finally finding the buyback threshold. Again, a game that's going to draw a lot of betting interest. Look at the time slot it's in at 5:15 Pacific. So there's going to be plenty of interest in this game, plenty of betting on the game. And you know what? If the Lions are going to get right, this is the game that they have to have. But who needs the game more too? And that is the Broncos, right? I mean, after that disastrous start. So
they both. I would argue that, and I know Detroit's in really still very good shape to win the division. I mean, in Minnesota,
but you don't want to go into the playoffs on the current.
Well, and also Minnesota's Minnesota's an underdog this week. Green Bay just gave away a golden opportunity to make up ground on them with the loss on Monday night to the Giants.
Yeah,
I mean, Detroit can win one of these last 4 and still win the division.
Sure,
but just to get yourselves right after after the bye week. That defense has been awful awful just across the board.
Yeah.
38 points against the Chargers, 26 against the Bears, the first game that they blew, 29 against Green Bay. They gave up 28 points to New Orleans, which is not easy to do. And then last week, 28 against Chicago. So I'm really concerned about them. Nice story. Obviously, they're going to make the playoffs, home playoff game for the first time since Barry Sanders was there if they win the North. But just not, they're not a threat. They're not close to the other three top teams, even with Philly's issues. In the NFC, Dallas, San Francisco, and the Eagles still clearly a notch better.
Yeah, there's definitely been some separation since then. Since we had them as fourth in the league, as a clear fourth, and they still might be the clear fourth. As a matter of fact, I think they are.
Yeah.
But I was trying to look to see, they've been a little better at home, certainly defensively, but but not great. I'm looking. I'm just looking at the home games. Gave up 29 to the Packers.
Yep.
That was Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
The 37 back in week 2 to Seattle as
Gave
well.
up 26 to the Bears.
Yeah.
The game that they almost lost.
Should have lost that game.
Yeah, should have lost that game.
To come back.
Yeah, they did hold the Raiders to 14, but other than the 63 they had last night,
Well,
I think that wasn't much of an accomplishment.
That was the game that got McDaniel fired. McDaniels fired, I should say. And the Raiders had one offensive touchdown in that game. The other one was a pick six, Marcus Peters.
So their defense maybe a shade better at home, but nothing to go crazy over.
Oh, I agree.
But I think they're better at home. Like their offense is a little better at home. I was looking, and by the way, Frank Schwab, if you're listening, I kind of gave you some. I was reading my notes backwards here. I opened the game 3.5.
Okay.
And they bet me quickly. And I moved up to the market because there was 5s out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to 4, and then they laid that. I went to 5 very quickly. Since then, we've been doing some two-way business. So this is one of those games right now. I'm not sure who I'm going to need in this game, but I think I'm at 4.5 with this one right now. Yeah.
Yes.
So, that seems to be a pretty decent number. That's a number that's everywhere. 4.5, 48 seems like the standard. I will tell you this, though. If you're looking to bet the Lions, I'd probably lay the money line. With a defense that weak, that back door is going to be just wide open. What is money lines? Mostly like $2 you can get. Yeah. I think that's probably the best way to go if you're going to play the Lions.
Let's go to Sunday, guys. I'm going to start at the bottom of the rotation board because I don't want to forget about it because this was the Monday night game that got flexed backwards.
Yeah.
Kansas City and
by the way, I do not like that.
You don't like the Monday night flex?
No. I mean, what if you're somebody from Kansas City and you had plans to go out to New England and you made all your arrangements, hotels and all that other stuff. And all of a sudden you're playing Sunday morning? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's just that doesn't seem right.
Honey, I'll make it up to you.
Yeah.
The Chiefs, guys, of course, all the noise this week. Look, Kadarius Toney just has to line up a foot backwards, and the narrative very different than what it ended up being from now on against the Bills.
By the way, we did see one last night as well.
Yeah, well,
was it just 22 or 23 this year compared to 2 last year and 1 the year before?
16 now after last night to 2 and 1. Again, point of emphasis. But also, he was clear. He was full foot and a half in front of the line, in front of the ball. Chris, you opened 9.5 on this game with Kansas City. You touched 10. You're back down to 8.5. Total 37.5. How much of what we saw last week from New England was just one game? How much of that was sustainable moving forward from Bailey Zappi? I don't think any of it was. Personally, I think just Pittsburgh wasn't ready to play.
Right.
And then once they were ready to play, New England did nothing the rest of that game. No points in the second half, just held on for dear life. And for Kansas City, this goes one of two ways. Either this game is uncomfortably close, or Kansas City does what they did to the Raiders a few weeks ago, where maybe they get off to a slow start, but then run them out and cover a bigger number on the road just to get themselves the quote-unquote get-right spot here with Kansas City.
I don't know. I mean, it's. I think Kansas City definitely has some problems, and I know that, Kelsey's saying they really don't. Unfortunately, they do. And we've been waiting for it, really. We kind of thought it would come to fruition last year. Of course, they won a Super Bowl last year, right. So, I mean, let's not knock them too bad. But now I think it is kind of coming to fruition. Let's not forget, Kelsey's getting a little bit older too. And what Kelsey was in September and October may not be what Kelsey is now in December. May be a little bit different. He may be wearing down. Listen, there's a lot of pressure on him. He is unquestionably the number one target on the offense, and everybody knows it, including the defense. So that there's some issues there. Total's relatively low. I hate to lay points, certainly on the road, and a total that's that low. But I'm not sure about the Patriots either. You talk about Bailey Zappi, and they did do nothing the second half against the Steelers. Steelers got caught unawares, whatever. Like we mentioned in the last game, Tomlin's teams have had a habit of doing that over the years. I gun to my head, I'd probably play the Chiefs, but not crazy about them in any way, shape, or form.
I think weather Bears watching the weather, particularly right in back east this coming weekend, and so I don't know. So the Chiefs have lost back-to-back games. I think is it the first time under Mahomes?
No.
But it's the
No,
first time.
this they've lost back-to-back December games for the first time with Mahomes,
right?
But not back-to-back in general.
But it's been a bit.
Yeah.
Now to think that maybe they're gonna drop 3 in a row. That's probably
A lot to ask.
Yeah, and now listen, this. I've got to tell you, the Steelers. I think I'm surprised because the Steelers' defense is really their trademark this year, and what Zappi and the Patriots did was a stunner. I tell you what, for the Chiefs, it's their defense that's really carried them this year. When you think about it, you've got the most drops by any wide receiver core in the league. A terrific quarterback. You can make a case that he's the best. He's definitely one of the best, but he may be the best quarterback. So, to Chris' point, if you're getting points here, it could be a premium in a game that, look, that's why every week makes you think, and you have to just take every game individually, right, Chris? I mean, you go to the Patriots before last week they hadn't scored in how many games or how many points did they score?
The Patriots were the first team since the 1938 Chicago Cardinals to give up 10 or less points and lose all 3.
Yeah. I mean, so and then what they did last week. So I doubt we're going to see that high watermark of 10 again. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I keep thinking of my dear departed friend Paul Sauner from Reno, who loved to bet favorite and under in spots like this. And this, I was chuckling as you were talking because I could see Paul being all over this.
All over it.
Favorite and under. He says, Chris, I'm telling you, it'll be 17-0. That's I believe me. I know Paul. I wish God bless. I wish he was still around. But this is the kind of game that he would love to play.
You got the weather there, Jeff? Was it
just rain?
That's it.
Rain. 10-mile-an-hour winds.
Okay.
Not a
lot of wind.
Yeah, might not even be raining a kick. So I might actually be okay, all things considered. All right, now to a game you can get into for 34 cents on the secondary ticket market. That's the Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers.
I'll take 2.
They were going for 34 cents on the secondary market earlier in the week.
If I had them, I would sell them to you.
Taking the whole staff.
I'd take the 68 cents and go home.
Panthers and the Falcons.
Wow.
Of course, Carolina, the worst team in the NFL. Hasn't gotten any better since they fired Frank Reich. The Falcons are in a 3-way tie at the top of the NFC South at 6-7. Falcons are 3. Every single Falcon game this year, Chris, has had a line that has not exceeded 4 in either direction. How about that?
They play close games, too.
The highest line in a Falcon game this year has been 4. So here you are again at 3 this week against Carolina.
That's funny. I had dinner with some friends of mine last night. They're all bettors, And the one guy told me, he says, I swear to God, this is the truth. He's in a pick'em league and he plays every game every week. He has yet to pick a Falcon game right. On or against.
I believe it.
On or against. So Terry, if you're listening, who do you like? So give us a hint so we know not to. My numbers came to 2.5 in this game. We were at 3.5. They laid me the 3. I went to 3.5. They took it back, which I can see. But I mean, I wouldn't go crazy over it. What do I give Carolina for a home field? Not much.
Shouldn't be anything, right?
I do give them 1.5. Probably half point more than I should. Excuse me.
So I will say this, just looking at this real quick, the largest line in an Atlanta game this year actually came in week 1 against Carolina. That was the largest line in a Falcon game this year. 3.5 or 4, depending on where you were looking.
Would you be shocked if Carolina won this game?
I wouldn't be shocked with anything with these teams in the NFC South.
Look, low number, low total. You mentioned 6 and 7, but they're all the 3 of them are 6 and 7, right?
Yeah, it's a 3-way tie at the top. It's 6 and 7.
It's
the great division, Vinny.
Yeah.
One of them will host a playoff game.
Yeah, one of them will host the NFC East runner-up in a playoff
like
game.
Seattle did the year they were 7 and 9.
What, Chris? They would have to imagine, regardless of who wins this division, will be a touchdown dog at home against either Philly or Dallas.
Yeah,
especially if it's Dallas.
Somebody asked me about a month ago. Might have been you, Jeff.
Yeah.
And I said, what would you make Dallas at? Pick a team.
I think it was Dallas at New Orleans at the time.
Pick a team.
Yeah.
I said 7.5.
Yeah,
I mean that's probably pretty close to what it is.
Yeah.
Wow. And we still got a month left.
We still got a month left. Still got plenty of time for the winner of this division to be 3 games under 500. So the only thing is, Atlanta has this game against Carolina. Tampa still plays Carolina again.
Yes.
You see the schedules on your screen. Atlanta's schedule actually relatively manageable. Granted, I would not expect them to win more than 2 of those games. Indianapolis at home, at the Bears, at New Orleans. Saints will get to their game against the Giants in a little bit. Thursday night in L.A. against the Rams, the Bucks, and the Falcons. Tampa has the most difficult one, at least in my opinion, of the competitive teams, at Green Bay, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and Carolina to end their season. Carolina, it doesn't matter. They're going to have the first pick, and it's going to the Bears regardless of what ends up happening the rest of the way. All right, speaking of the Bears, how about the Chicago Bears, where if they didn't blow that game in Detroit about a month ago, we'd be legitimately talking about them finding a way to sneak into the postseason with the way they have played over the last few weeks. On the road at Cleveland, Joe Flacco, they finally put him on the 53, Vinny. They finally did. Yes.
They were wise to do that.
They finally did it. Flacco will start the rest of the year. Chris, to me, this is the toughest game to bet on the board this week because you open 3.5, you're down to 3. Total's been between 37.5 and 38 the whole week, right now at 38. This is a really difficult game for me because it feels like we're getting close to the peak of the market on the Bears. But I think we're starting to I think we're overvaluing Joe Flacco just a little bit as well. So it's one of these scenarios where I think you have overvaluing going on both sides, which makes it a pretty hard game for me to get a read on here with the Bears visiting the Browns.
Well, the thing about the Bears, Fields is so inconsistent, and part of that is that he looks really good at times.
He was awesome last week.
Yeah, I mean, he looks really, really good. And then other weeks he looks absolutely atrocious. Which one are you getting? Now he's going against a very, very good defense here. So let's keep that in mind. So, I mean, I actually made this game a little bit higher. I'm not crazy about betting the Browns in this spot, but I think you do have this young, inconsistent quarterback going against a very, very good defense. I have to think this is going to be one of the bad games for Justin Fields. I'll probably wind up needing the Bears, but I'm not going to be crazy about needing them. I think right now I would believe the Browns are the right side.
Browns' defense is even better at home.
Yeah.
And one of the things that is problematic for the Bears, as well as they've played in the last few weeks, I think they lead. They're near the top or at the top of the league in offensive penalties. They shoot themselves in the foot quite often. Listen, Flacco, less than a month ago, he was on his couch. I mean, this guy's played terrific when you think
He
about
was
it.
excellent
He
last
played
week.
really well, yeah.
And that's why I was surprised last week when we were, we were sort of a little tongue in cheek, but it's true. They announced that the guy is the starter for the
And
rest
he's
of the
not-
year,
and he's
and
still
they
on the
put him
practice
on the practice squad, and somebody could have picked him up.
Yeah, somebody could
like the
pick him up.
Steelers. I mean, think about that. How crazy would that have been? If the division rival picks him up and pays him what he's looking for. So, but that didn't happen, and I think Chrissy's right. I think there's going to be more support for the Browns in this game. Certainly, House is going to need the Bears in this game.
I still can't believe Joe Flacco's looked as good as he has these first 2 weeks. And that's why right now Kevin Stefanski's my coach of the year. You have 4 quarterbacks. You're on your way to the playoffs.
Good point.
It'll be 2 times in 4 years for Stefanski winning the award. Of course, he won it in 2020 as well when the Browns were so close to upsetting Kansas City in the divisional round, which may have changed the course of NFL history just a little bit if Baker Mayfield makes a Super Bowl in 2020. All right, speaking of Baker Mayfield, him and the Bucs are on the road at Green Bay this week. Boy, I know it's DeVito mania in New York, but boy, what a bad loss for Green Bay to lose that game at the Meadowlands on Monday night. The Bucs, of course, they found a way in a game that Atlanta statistically dominated. They won that game in Atlanta last week. Mayfield had to drive at the end of the game, and the Bucs right now, if the playoffs started today, they would be the ones who have the home game. They have the tie breaks right now in that division at 6 and 7. Chris, you opened 3.5 with the Packers. Went down to 3. It's now back to 3.5. Total's 42. Peak was 43 on this game. With the hook, I don't have much interest in this one. I think Green Bay at 3 was good, especially now maybe buying a little bit low after the market was at the peak of what they were last week, being as big of a favorite on the road as they were against the Giants. And for Tampa, all these NFC South teams are terrible. None of them are any good, even though Tampa might be the best of the bunch because they have the quarterback I trust the most of the 3 that are in the mix.
Most experienced roster, too.
Yeah.
Right.
Super Bowl caliber, well, not anymore, but guys who played in the Super Bowl on that defense. So.
There's some pretty respected opinions, I think, on the Packers here with bouncing back. And but the Bucs, they just battled. You know what? If you look at their games, it's funny. Atlanta last week, Jeff, you brought up a good point about Atlanta really statistically dominated that game. Atlanta statistically dominated the first game in Tampa a month ago and
barely won by a field goal.
So these games play out in such ways aside from the statistics too, so you know what? It's but I think this will be public on the Packers, and depending on how high the game gets, then it'll be pros on the dog, Chris.
Yeah, we're going to agree to disagree on that. I think the public is still with DeVito mania, and I think they see the Packers as
beatable.
Yeah,
just an average team.
Yeah. Now, I happen to like the Packers in this game. Listen, if you're going to play, I'd like to lay the 3, obviously, but it's moved away from the 3 up to 3.5. I respect Tampa Bay, and I always kind of like Baker Mayfield. I thought that is a kid that's really kind of gotten the short end of the stick. I mean, he took a winless Cleveland team to the playoffs the next year, and I just think. He's not great. He's not, but he is gutty, and he's going to give you all he's got. But I still kind of like Green Bay in a bounce-back situation here. If I was out to play, I would probably play a money line or look to lay the 3. I don't give them a lot of credit for for their bounce-back capabilities, but I do think they happen to be the right side in this game.
Let's go to the AFC South. C.J. Stroud not going to play this week. Concussion. Davis Mills and his long neck will get the start for the Houston Texans. The Titans became the first team in 768 games to come back with less than 3 minutes to go in regulation, down 14, and win the game outright. How about that? As a 2-touchdown dog, no less, doing it.
Well, I think in regulation, right?
Correct.
Is that what you said?
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
Correct, yeah. And Chris, Titans are 3.5 in this game, 36.5. It's already been built into the market that Stroud wasn't going to play.
Yeah.
Suffering that concussion late in that Jet game. I don't even with the hook. I don't know how you can take Davis Mills in this spot. That's what it comes down to for me. I just can't get there with a Houston defense that, by the way, got exposed in a big way in the second half last week.
Well, again, I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
You know, I think right now, if you look at it, you're definitely buying high on a Titans team that, let's face it, is not very good, Jeff.
They are not.
They came back they had a miraculous win last week, which was, I mean, you just talked about it's going to go down in the annals of NFL history as one of the great comeback wins of all time. So I think you're buying high on the Titans. And, where the Texans exposed defensively and no C.J. Stroud. And you're kind of buying low on the Texans. So I think we see both those things going in opposite directions. And I kind of like the Texans in this spot, especially with the 3.5. I just think it's gotten, a little bit overdone with that particular situation.
Texans pretty beat up too, though, injury-wise. I think when you look at this, I think the Titans are healthier overall, particularly at the not only skill positions but at key positions defensively. Now Mills wasn't awful last year. I mean, this is a
Mills had his
He's not
moments.
awful. No,
Had his moments.
He's got serviceable for sure. Levis, talk about a warrior. I mean, you gotta love this kid's makeup of the way he plays. But I mean, laying 3.5 here, I can tell you this: if this game gets to 4, I'll give you my patented "don't blink."
Yeah.
So maybe that's what some of the folks are waiting for.
Nico Collins is questionable as well.
Well,
of course, we saw Tank Dell go out for the year with a broken fibula 2 weeks ago. Now with Collins, and that's part of the reason I think it got away from Houston last week.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's fair.
Stroud was without both of his top 2 targets. The Jets' defensive line annihilated their O-line as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll
they
see.
played a good first half.
Oh, what, nothing?
Defensively.
What, nothing? Hey,
Defensively.
Hey, look, again, nothing game that goes over the total is always a lot of fun, guys. Nothing at half and 30. What was it? It was 36 second half points. Pushed that thing over.
Yeah,
to
30 to 6.
30 to 6
final score
in the second half. All right. Tommy DeVito. By the way, Vinny, I just have to ask you this. Why are you not getting inducted into the Italian-American Sports Hall of Fame?
I thought I was.
I mean, that's the
you
got to be in Chicago then. The introductions are tonight.
I'm working. I'll be via satellite.
There you go. The inductions tonight. Tommy DeVito's agent is going in tonight to that Hall of Fame in Chicago. I mean, I said this on Twitter the other day. This feels.
First of all, you beat the Packers. Okay, you go to Chicago. There's no question about it. They're going to be welcomed with open arms. Let me say so.
Right? Yeah.
There's no coincidence.
Ask Ryan McCormick there. Yeah, sure.
So DeVito, look, NFC Offensive Player of the Week, Tommy DeVito. Ryan McCormick was there to see it as well at MetLife Stadium in their upset win over the Green Bay Packers. I mean, New Orleans, they go to New Orleans now. Saints are 5.5. There was nothing that inspired confidence with that win last week from the Saints. Nothing. At one point, Derek Carr had 13 completions for 37 yards. So
didn't they get outgained by like 200 yards or something?
No, I don't think so because
they were outgained.
They were outgained by 96 yards.
Carolina.
But I mean, Carolina averaged 3.5 yards a play. That was just a matter of Carolina running more plays more than anything. But I don't know. This New Orleans team, I don't know why to keep trotting Carr out there. He's clearly not healthy. He's completely ineffective. And if it wasn't for the fact that this feels like this line is down because of what the Giants have done these last 3 games, which make it a little bit harder for me to go take the Giants at 5.5 here, I can't bet New Orleans either. I mean, this is a classic stay away with how bad Derek Carr has looked. And the Saints seemingly keep getting away with it because they keep playing these horrible teams week in and week out.
The Giants are not horrible.
They're not.
Anymore.
They're well coached. I can give you that.
I will tell you this, and even if for whatever discord there may be on the coaching staff, right, Martindale,
I think they're fine.
I think winning cures a lot of things.
Yes, it does.
I and I think the Giants are getting a bit healthier this week too, Jeff. On the defensive side of the ball, I think they get Waller was practicing.
Waller's
this week.
Practicing. Waller's
Which
practicing.
I will tell you this: I'm sorry, Ryan. Yeah. Now Waller under Daniel Jones was not utilized, right?
Not at all.
Okay. A player like Waller, I believe, will be utilized by DeVito. And I think it just makes him. And listen, you can't deny what, maybe a flash in the pan, whatever it is. You can't deny current form. And they've been one of the more consistent teams, and there's belief there. They're playing they're playing decent. So it's tough to go against a team with that kind of momentum right now, and the question marks with the Saints, frankly. So
I'm going against what I just said about buying low and selling high, because I think right now you are. If you choose to play this game, you could be buying low on the Saints and selling high on the Giants. Excuse me. But I'm going with the Giants in this one. I like the Giants, and I think a lot of things Vinny said about momentum, current form, I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, this team, they found their guy, and maybe it's I think you called it like similar to Linsanity.
I mean, it's a less believable insanity. I mean,
less believable.
I mean, that's what it is. Look, and for the Giants, like, you know what? You can have a quarterback. You can have a quarterback competition next year with Jones coming off the ACL.
Yeah, I think so.
DeVito's making no money. So, like, it's okay even if Daniel Jones
look at the results.
Is a really expensive backup for you next year if
Yeah.
DeVito does this for the last month of the season.
Yeah, I mean, can I dare to say it? I mean, they still in the playoff race. I mean, can they finish 9-8?
If the Bears are in the race, the Giants are technically in the race too.
Well, they got the Eagles.
Here's the problem: the
twice.
Giants, they play Philadelphia on Christmas, and then they play them the final week of the year.
That's going to be
I just have a
tough.
hard time seeing them beating them more than maybe they shock them in MetLife the final week of the year. But I don't see them marching into Philly and beating them on Christmas.
I don't see them beating them twice
the way
either.
Philly-
I
And
really
then
don't.
they play the Rams.
Then they play the Rams, who are playing pretty good ball. Really lost last week against Baltimore, but I thought really looked pretty good.
Honestly, should have won that game.
Yeah, probably should have.
I mean, so all right, let's go to the other New York team. The AFC Offensive Player of the Week, Zach Wilson.
Oh my God!
As we all expected, DeVito and Wilson.
The world is flat. What the?
So this is an interesting one again, where it's kind of the same principle we just talked about. So this game opened 12.5 sight unseen, Chris.
Yeah.
Miami does whatever you call that on Monday night and loses that game to Tennessee.
Yeah.
But now the injuries are starting to rack up on Miami's side. They're down 3 offensive linemen in this game against the pass rush you don't want to be down linemen to. Tyreek Hill is a game-time decision on Sunday as well. This got all the way down to 8. It's been pushed back to 9. It's kind of the same deal for me as the other game, where I think what you said is right, Chris, where, you're kind of, you can sell higher on the Jets because they actually had an offensive performance last week. And you could buy low in Miami coming off of that disgusting loss on Monday night. But I don't know why you'd want to do that with the way that Jet defense can match up. And if Tyreek Hill doesn't play, boy, when Tyreek wasn't on the field on Monday night, Miami couldn't move the ball against Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, guys were saying this proves that Tyreek Hill should be the MVP.
I agree with those guys.
I agree with that logic. I'm not sure he's going to get
Won't
there.
happen,
Yeah. But I think right now that game exposed just how vulnerable Miami is with a weak offensive line and with 3 offensive linemen out. And you have to start questioning, are they a paper tiger? Now a paper tiger can certainly win as a 9-point favorite. But I kind of think the Jets are, the more I look at this game, I think the Jets are the right side here, and I got to tell you, I'm probably going to need Miami in this one. This is going to be a tough one for me to overcome. So I hope the public comes out and starts betting them. I opened 12.5. They took the 12.5 and the 12 off, man. That's probably a mistake on my part. I probably should have opened that a little bit lower. But listen, I did what I did, and we'll let them play on Sunday and see what happens.
Well, I mean, if Miami just doesn't blow the lead, the number probably doesn't. It moves a little bit, but I don't think it's as aggressive in the move. I think, and part of it is that people, obviously, the last thing they saw, Miami blowing a 14-point lead in the last 3 minutes. And again, Vinny, we just said it. I mean, Tyreek Hill, even if Tyreek Hill plays, he's not going to be 100%, which for a guy like that, where the speed is the biggest asset, that's a problem.
Well, we talked about it a few weeks ago with Tyreek Hill. I think you mentioned, Jeff, there were spots out there where he was 50-1.
That was about a month ago. Yes.
I mean, again, I'm not to critique it, but that's absolute value. I mean, if you had a ticket 50-1 now, you're in a driver's seat to do whatever you want with with anybody else. But all that said, we've said that there were two teams that with good records and scored a lot of points and did a lot of good things against inferior opponents. Let's see what they do when they play a good team. Well, we saw what the Cowboys did last week.
They handled their business
against the Eagles. We're going to get another chance to see, what the Dolphins do here in this final month, right? They've got some really big games coming up, but they've got to produce outside of this AFC East, and again, including the Bills, right? I mean, so which they're gonna get
again.
Buffalo
week 18 to Miami,
which is good for them. But still, there's got to be some more consistency. The O-line injuries are critical. I mean, they're collectively.
Well,
they're as big as Hill individually.
Center. I mean, Jonathan Harrison's going to start at center this week. That's a big deal with Quinnen Williams going on the other side.
Centers are underrated.
100%.
To the number.
Yeah, and Connor Williams, their number one center, out for the year, torn ACL on Monday night. Yeah. So, again, for Miami, that was the game. That was the gimme game that they lost on Monday.
Yeah.
To get them to 10 wins.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. With 3 minutes left, it looked like the gimme was a gimme.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee did everything in their power to hand them 3 touchdowns. They had 3 touchdowns in that game.
They did.
The pick six, the muffed punt where the kid went to go grab the ball off the hop, and then Levis firing the ball into the Atlantic Ocean off Derrick Henry's helmet. I mean, and they still lost the game. I would be very alarmed. Miami, if they get upset again this week, and I'm not saying they will, but if they do, they play Dallas the week after that. They go on the road to Baltimore, and then they play Buffalo. I didn't mention an easy game in the bunch there, those final 3.
No, and believe me, whatever happens in this game tomorrow, they're going to feel it because this Jet defense.
Yeah, no, I know it's not an easy
physical
game for them, regardless. Yeah. Before Tim Boyle threw the Hail Mary, that was a 4-point game at halftime. If it wasn't for that nonsense. All right, Niners and the Arizona Cardinals. Boy, guys, the Niners are just a juggernaut right now, just demolishing everything in their path. Seahawks did cover the closing numbers last week, though, against them. Now on the road, and people have been taking Arizona here from 13.5 down to 12 with a total of 48 with San Francisco on the road here, Vinny.
Maybe a little bit of a, maybe a bit of a letdown. I don't know. But the thing about this Niner team is they go about their business.
Sure do.
Sometimes they start a little bit slow. We did see that in Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago. But when they're healthy, which they are pretty much for the most part, they're the best team in the league. Forget not just the conference. So again, I don't know if there are look-ahead spots. Sometimes there are just like little kind of letdowns a little bit in the pros here. Look, this team knows it. They know that the Cardinals beat the Cowboys at home. They know that the Cardinals beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So pretty well coached here. I mean, they'll remain focused. Will they cover the number? The people that grabbed the 13.5, that's not your casual fan. I can tell you that. I respect that.
No, I'm I still think this looks like a little bit of a diminishing returns game to me. I think not that they're coasting. I mean, I don't see them as a coast job. They don't have that really in them. But they do have the Ravens coming up next. And, I mean, this is a game they absolutely should win. And I think barring something absolutely crazy, they will win it. But I do think that number's just a little bit high to be laying on the road. I think 10 is probably a better number. But, listen, that's where we are with the number is 12. And I see some 11.5s out there. But, I mean, I'm not out there begging for Niner money. I don't need to do that. There's plenty of it out there.
Yeah, no, it's and again for the Niners, again, if they win out, they will have home field throughout the NFC playoffs, which will make it incredibly difficult for anyone to upset them along the way. Even if it's Dallas, we already saw that once this year, and the Niners ran them out of the building in Levi's earlier in the year.
I think Dallas is better now, though.
I would tend to agree with that, but again, as we've talked about with Dallas, and we'll get into it in a moment with their road game, there's so much. They're a different team at home as opposed to away from AT&T. All right, Rams and Commanders next. Commanders 6.5-point dogs on the road. Rams had a shot to win in Baltimore last week, lose on a walk-up punt return in overtime. Chris, this game's been pretty stable over the last few days at 6.5 with the Rams. Of course, you opened 7, but stability at 6.5 over the last 4 days.
Yeah, they took the 7 pretty quick. We went to 6.5, and since then we have yet to move. So good two-way action at the 6.5. I don't see this game moving anywhere else. I don't see that right now. But listen, I've been around a long time, and sometimes these moves do come to fruition in the last day or two. But I think it's a pretty good number for a pretty good team who's playing a pretty bad team. But I think 6.5 is probably enough. I did open 7. I like 7 a little bit better, but I don't see us getting back there. I think there's enough Washington money to keep us at 6.5.
Commanders coming off the break, right? And the Rams coming off a really physical game.
Yeah.
Chris, we were talking
and
about
in overtime.
In overtime. You have to credit McVay with the job he's done with this team, too. A nice blend of veterans and young players. So yeah, I mean, Rams, dangerous team. They can beat anybody. But this is a game that they'll take care of business on. It's just a question of how much. I think that there's going to be support for the Rams on Sunday, and the fact that this game is in the afternoon, I'm going to disagree just a little. It wouldn't shock me if it goes back up, only because of carryover of the carryover element as an afternoon game.
Let's go to the big one in the afternoon. Dallas and Buffalo.
Yeah.
Bills, I mean, everything's there for the taking. Holding on and winning that game in Kansas City really kind of just changes the narrative here. Where if the Bills win out, forget just making the playoffs, they might steal the division out from underneath Miami.
They got them head-to-head. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, with the way that everything's looking like it may trend for the Dolphins this last month. Dallas, they do need Philadelphia to lose once in order to win the NFC East. The way that they currently own the tiebreakers, but they won't if both teams win out because of the way that the tiebreakers end up going once the full schedule's completed. Dallas is a 2-point underdog in this game, Chris. Buffalo favored at home. 1.5 to 2.5, back to 2. Total at 50.5 on this one. And I just want to double check real quick because I didn't have anything in my notes on the weather being particularly poor. No, a little windy, but 50 degrees in Buffalo in December is pretty darn good, all things considered.
Yeah. It's funny. My power ratings came to Cowboys a slight favorite, but right away I looked at it. I said, boy, I'm going to use Ray Rhodes, I think, used the example. It's like the coyote and the rabbit.
Okay.
One's running for a meal and the other one's running for their life. And right now the Cowboys are running for a meal. The Bills are running for their life. And they do have the talent. I mean, there's no doubt. And I still think they have a good coach in hand. And I think their quarterback is still really good, one of the best in the league. Just some crazy things have happened to him during the course of the year. I agree with where the number is right now. And I wouldn't go crazy betting on him laying points or laying any kind of money line or anything like that, because I still think the game's probably about a toss-up one way or the other. It's going to be a key play here or there to make it. But I do think it's probably the right number on the game, even though my power ratings did come to Cowboys a very slight favorite here.
Great game. Fun game. It's going to be a good game to watch. Certainly a fun game to book. Everybody's going to get involved with it one way or the other. And that the two, I mean, I guess if you like the Cowboys, you probably like them to win the game. So
correct.
Maybe take plus a dime, That's
the way I'm looking to play.
If you like the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So But again, I think there's going to be plenty of support for both sides in this one, and it's a game that I think just about everybody's going to get involved with one way or the other, even if it's teasers, right, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, Dallas up to 8, perfect teaser leg. If the Bills win, I mean, the Bills get the Chargers next week, and the Chargers are an unfathomable mess at this rate. And again, they get the Patriots, which New England already beat them this year, so revenge spot for the Bills. And then in Miami, Week 18 against the Dolphins. So,
heads up, right?
I mean, it could be all for the taking in that Week 18
That's
game.
right.
Very easily could be 10-6 against 10-6, winner take all in that spot. Would not shock me one bit if that ends up being the case. The Sunday night we go, the Ravens, 3-point road favorites against Jacksonville. This is a toggler, as you would say, fellas. 3.5 and 3, 42 the total on this one. You know, I know the Ravens are the favorites in the AFC. They look like they're going to get the number 1 seed. I don't know what it is. I don't trust them at all.
I don't either.
I don't trust
But the
them
thing is,
bit.
who do you trust in the AFC?
Well, that's the problem. I don't trust anyone at the moment.
I don't either.
So for me in this spot, remember the last year these two teams played a wackadoo game in Jacksonville that the Jags scored a late touchdown to steal that game underneath from Baltimore en route to winning to the AFC South. Trevor Lawrence, you imagine, will be more healthy in this game after playing, actually moved pretty well for having a high ankle sprain.
A lot of credit.
Against that defense, no less. Moved pretty well in that game against Cleveland.
Yep.
They put up 27 points. It was the turnovers that did them in more than anything in that game against the Browns. I like Jacksonville outright in this spot. I think this is a good, nice, it is a step up in opponent. You're playing the team with the best record in the AFC. But Baltimore, to me, is there's like we talk about with Dallas, considerable difference from home to road. They're still good on both, but
they're better on the road, Baltimore.
Baltimore is better on the road, but we have also seen this year as well, Baltimore, the game they blew on the road already this year, that they should not have blown to Pittsburgh. I think Jacksonville finds a way to get this thing done at home on the Sunday night, winning this thing outright and stabilizing the ship for what could turn into a mess if Indy and Houston both win. That's a 3-way tie at the top of the AFC South all of a sudden.
I have no idea what I'm going to need here. I made the number 3.
And they toggled it.
Yeah, 3.5. So, I mean, just depends on how far I want to go with the 3.5 because I'll certainly take it, but I'll let them, I guess I'll have to decide that on Sunday night. But I'm not certainly opposed to what you've said. I made it a dead 3, and I think, I think we're all in me, you and I haven't heard from Vinny, but I think I could speak for him. I think the AFC looks wide open, and I don't think there's one team that we could say, yeah, they should be the odds-on favorite, as is San Francisco in the NFC.
I think when it comes down to the AFC, watch who's playing really good at the in these next months leading up to the postseason, and even if they, maybe especially if they're on the road, you're going to be able to get a nice price on the conference futures.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think it's wide open. This one here, I mean, it's simple, right? They're going to lay 3, they're going to take 3.5, and we need the game to not.
You need the game not
be
Baltimore by 3.
That's it.
Anything
it's
but
pretty
that's
straightforward.
Okay.
So.
In those situations, I usually hold the 3 as long as I can.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, I'll probably need the Jags come Sunday night.
All right, let's go to Monday before we get out of here today. The bettors are taking Seattle, Chris.
Yeah.
You're the only 3.5 left in the market. It's mostly 3 minus 20 on the favorite right now. You open 4, down to as low as 3, so that 3.5 actually a recent move right before we went on the air here. 47.5. I will be totally honest with both of you. I have no clue what to expect out of this game because I need to see if Gino is going to be ready to play and how healthy he is if he does play. After watching Drew Lock last week, I don't think there's much of a difference between a compromised Gino and Drew Lock.
Agreed.
And for Philly, how do you respond in a season where they had won all the close games, and they have won all the close games this year, and you just got your teeth kicked in back-to-back weeks? San Francisco put it on them, and then Dallas put it on them again this past week. How does that team, that this group isn't used to getting kicked in the teeth like that back-to-back weeks, how do you respond on the road against a team that is like you said, a desperate football team right now. Seattle needs this game.
Oh, yeah.
If they lose, they're 6-8 and need to win out to get in the playoffs.
That's like that one friend I was telling you about.
Exactly.
He was texting me. He says, "What do you think?" I like the Eagles -3. I said, "Well, -3. At least you got a good number."
Right.
I said, "But this is a very desperate team, Seattle, right now, and they certainly believe they can get in the playoffs. And if we expose Philly for maybe not being quite as good as we thought they were, and I think that's a legitimate question." They did lose to two juggernauts, but they lost convincingly, really. I don't know. I think right now, I think I kind of like Seattle in this game. And, I'm at 3.5, and I got to go back and take a look and see why we're there. But, they'll lay the 3, and they'll take the 3.5. And, again, I'll have to see how far I want to go with this thing, because right now, they're still going to be a very, very public team, and I can't say the same about Seattle at this point.
I think if you're Philly, you've got to say, look, the schedule's before us, and if we can run it, we can win the division.
Well, if you run it,
right?
If San Francisco loses once and Philly wins out, Philly gets the 1 seed.
Then they get the 1 seed. But the first focus is on the division. So, this is they're the better team here. It's just a matter of what their psyche is, and I think that they can overcome it. But again, you're going to have another game here. You're going to have a 3, and it's just like the Raven game. They're going to take the 3.5, and they're going to lay the 3 with the road team. And from our perspective, we don't need that number to fall. That's plain and simple.
The Eagles' schedule gets absurdly easy after this. 2 with the Giants and the Cardinals.
The Giants, it goes Giants, Cardinals, Giants.
Yeah, if they beat the Seahawks,
right?
Even with all the issues they've had the last few weeks,
exactly,
and everyone's saying, "Oh, they've been a luck box this year," all that. We probably going 14-3 here, and winning to the NFC East yet again.
Mm-hmm. Just get us home for the playoffs, and we'll figure it out.
That should be what the attitude
right?
is at this point.
Yeah, if they get that week off, forget home field. If they get that week off, things could. Come together quickly for that team that's had some troubles.
Yeah. And again, I don't be interested to see what the Ravens-Niners game ends up being on Christmas night, which is an unbelievable game to wrap up that week 16. I don't see the Niners losing the other 3 games on their schedule, Cardinals, Commanders, Rams. I just don't see them losing any of those 3. So the 1 seed could very easily come down to San Francisco handling their business at home against Baltimore. They do that, playoffs go through Santa Clara, and it could be awfully difficult for anyone to come out.
They might not go through Santa Clara, but they're going through the Niners. That I can tell you.
Well, and regardless here, if the Niners playing the Super Bowl here, there'd be a Niner fan or 2 here
so.
for that.
Yeah.
We've seen that.
Can I tell you something about the Niner fans, too?
Go ahead.
They got a lot of money. I wouldn't mind seeing them in this town.
They back them.
Yeah, they got a lot of money.
Chris, Vinny, fun as always. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. Alex White and I back at 8 in the morning. College hoops, 3 NFL games, college bowl games, a lot to get to on the show tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. right after Race Day Las Vegas, which is at 7 a.m. with Ralph Sirocco, giving you all you need to know across the country in horse racing. For Vinny Magliulo, Chris Andrews, big thanks to Jerry, Sean, and Ryan. Great work as always. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again tomorrow, 8 a.m. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.